Hey guys, Lance Martin, Coldwell Banker Town & Country, and welcome back to our 2024 real estate market forecast. We are back for, how many years now have we done this, Mark?
8, 10.
8 or 10. Mark Dowling, CEO. Are you technically CEO? Or
I am.
CEO, Inland Valleys Association of Realtors.
Correct.
And that's been how many years now?
It will be 14 in September.
14 years. Time flies.
It does indeed.
And we've done this for 8, 9, 10 years.
Yep.
So here we are. Thanks for coming in again.
Always, thank you.
Again. So Mark and I did a little debrief before we sat down, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do? What's going to be interesting? We want to talk about the NAR lawsuits, but both of us are maybe a little bit, so many moving parts.
Right.
So we'll touch base on that a little bit. Obviously, this is our market forecast. You guys, I want to start with this. You guys, when I say you guys, Ivar, through your, what's that little separate little thing we got going? Inland Empire?
Board of Real Estate.
Board of Real Estate.
Right.
And you're doing your housing data stuff.
Right.
Who does that? Is that you or Van, or who does that?
Both Van and I do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so Van's our kind of IT operations guy.
Okay.
He's a former IBM software, hardware designer.
Yep.
And he wrote a program that basically we download all the CRMLS data each month.
Okay.
We crunch the numbers and we come up with our own Inland Empire housing data report.
And you're doing your own version of that.
Yes.
So that's not, you're pulling it from CRMLS.
We pull the raw data,
Okay.
and then Van wrote all the code that then puts it together in our categories.
Right.
And then I offer a very brief summation of what's gone on
Yeah,
last
but it's
month.
good. It's good. So you guys know I'm doing my market snapshot, and I'm pulling my data from CRMLS. I was using Broker Metrics. Now I'm using the InfoSparks. It's
Right.
okay.
It's good.
But every month I look at your stuff, and I'm comparing it to make sure, number one is, in theory, we're pulling the same data.
Correct.
So, but I think that's one of the reasons you and I get along so well, because you obviously have an interest in that, not just to get it out to the membership. And by the way, is that only available to Ivar members, or is that something that kind of
No,
goes
people
out?
can access our website. We have all of our reports and a kind of a history. We have all of it there. So there's an archive of it.
And I could link to that?
You can link to that. You can pull reports from years ago and do comparisons if you want.
All right. Well, part of our audience is realtors, of course, and most of those are Ivar members. And affiliates, et cetera, same members that you have.
Right.
But a lot of my audience, I like to think, is our landlords and our past clients and even tenants, and the stuff that I do. Everyone's looking at data, and I don't know if they look at it quite the same way you and I do. But I'll link to your stuff because it's good. I look at it all the time, and then you've got your analysis. So that being said, this is the market forecast, Mark.
Good.
So what's going on in this real estate market of ours right now?
Well, when you work in real estate, you realize right away it's never the same from day to day, week to week, year to year.
Yep.
So let's talk about last year as being an abysmal year from a real estate standpoint.
Yep.
We work off of transactions, and when transactions decrease the way we saw, which was roughly a 30% decrease, that's substantial.
Right.
But the good news is we're seeing the trend change. Not gigantic numbers, but it's definitely improved. We saw a 19% increase in new listings April over April from this year to last year.
Correct. And you just ran those. You're talking we're talking data that's about as fresh as you can get.
Yeah.
So just pulled those in the last
2 days.
2 days. Got it. Okay.
And even year to date, we're looking at about a 15% increase on new listings, which is important because you cannot have a closed sale unless you have a new listing first.
It helps.
That's the pipeline. That's what we kind of track to see what's going on.
Right.
Not everything closes, but at least it gives you a slice of what the activity is and the interest from sellers.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting because, again, we're tracking the same stuff. And I look at my offices, and it's a 30 to 40% reduction in volume.
Yeah.
And by the way, we got to be careful because you do the same thing that I've done 1,000 times, and we say, oh, last year was just abysmal. And I'm like, well, I got to remember who my audience is, because if I own a piece of real estate and Lance says it's a horrible market, it's like, well, what is Lance talking about? 'Cause a lot of consumers think, well, does that mean there's a problem with prices? It's like, well, no, prices are fine, and we can talk a little bit about that. But we are so close to it, and it's like we need transaction volume.
Right.
And that transaction volume has just been painful for a couple of years.
Yes.
But even on the inventory side, though, because we've been talking about, we've had inventory problems. We can go back to look at a market forecast 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we got bad inventory. Well, we would have killed for the inventory last year that we had 5 years ago. So, but the trend, so what was the number you said? The increase year over year, 16%
On
in
new
listings?
listings, we're looking year to date about 15%. Last month, April, was 19% increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which of course translates hopefully into more transactions next month and the following month.
Yeah, we'll see those sales start to pick
Right.
up.
So it begs the counter argument that nobody's going to sell because they're locked into a 3% mortgage. Well,
Right.
somebody's selling. You know,
Yes.
15, 16% people are selling. We just closed escrow. Well, we're going to close, knock on wood, tomorrow. Somebody's selling, got a 3% mortgage, beautiful home in Upland.
Right.
And different conversation, they're moving out of state. So, anyway, so that data you're pulling every single month, and you're tracking. Well, you're tracking all of it. You're not just tracking. You're not just tracking active listings, property values.
Median sales price, all the major ones that are kind of essential to our industry, and ones that consumers can look at. So we put the report out each month. It's a PDF. We want our members to download it. They can send those out to their clients because it doesn't take, when you look at a report, it doesn't take an economist to figure it out.
Right.
Any layperson can look at it and see what the numbers are and figure out it. We have a city-by-city breakdown.
That's the part. I was just going to go there. I like
Yeah.
the city-by-city thing.
So you could even, we do it somewhat granular and then somewhat regional for the IVAR region, but it's easy to read. Anybody can read that and with a certain level of authority kind of know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, on the city-by-city thing, if you guys, and pretty much every city in IVAR's jurisdiction?
It depends on what category. So if we're showing new listings, the program requires there be at least 10 new listings in that city.
Okay.
Every so often, a small city, an outlier city, will only get 8 or 9.
Redlands?
Maybe.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know if Redlands has dropped out, but sometimes that will happen and they'll kind of drop out of it.
Right.
But for the most part, we do have city-by-city breakdown on all sales and median sales price going up or down in all of them.
And when did you start this? How many years ago?
So we initially started about 11 or 12 years ago. And the first program that we'd set up, we created one that was interactive, one where you could establish your own queries. You could choose your own city, your own parameters, your own zip codes, sales price, and it did not go well. The fact is we could not get our members to engage with it, and we realized that's not what they wanted. It was too complicated. It took too much effort and to go in and actually create their own queries. So we said, look, let's do something simple. We flipped it. We made it a standard static type of report, capturing the most important content that they're looking for, and that was it. It took off from there.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to link to Mark's stuff. It's good. We'll talk offline about how far back you go. I've been doing some stuff 25 years ago. I don't have it. I was like, man, I wish I would have had that stuff. There's 1,500 listings in the city of Moreno Valley between 1993 and 2004. And now it's just this memory that might be correct in my mind. And I'm like, where do I even find that data? But at any rate, okay, so you are the CEO of the Inland Valley Association of Realtors. How many members do we have? By the way, I'm a member.
Yes, you are.
So what's our head count today?
So we are very close to about 4,000 realtor members.
Okay.
So we also have affiliate members. Affiliate members fall into the category of folks in escrow, title, home inspection, termite companies. Those are affiliate industries that support realtor activities and business. What we do.
So again, we do on our forecast, it's not all economic stuff. You're what I call the industry guy.
Right.
So we come in, we talk a little bit about the economics, but from an industry perspective, so what is IVAR doing? What are you doing? What is CAR thinking? What is NAR thinking in relation to our current market and how that's going to impact our members? Are we anticipating more members this year, less, same?
So on the national level, I don't have great numbers, but on the statewide level and certainly the region, I have a good feel for what's going on there. Pretty much everybody across California lost members. All the associations, realtor associations, lost anywhere from 2 to 5% last year. So
minimal.
Not a disaster.
Right.
This year, it looks like everybody's trending in a very similar pattern.
Okay.
I think the highest one was about 7.5% year over year. Most of them are in the 4 to 5% range.
Okay.
Now keep in mind, 2 years at 3, 4, 5% decrease. I mean, nobody wants to have a contracting business, but at the same time, we saw our membership grow. When I say we, I'm talking realtor associations across California for a decade. A decade. And some of those years were double-digit increases. So we can handle a couple of years when we're 3, 4, 5%.
Well, it's a little choppy. Market's a little tough. Interest rates go up. People freak out a little bit, and maybe it's not as attractive as a business.
I think the attrition rate is a little higher. I think that we have a number of agents that don't do a lot of business, and that's for every association. And sometimes they might be older, it could be a second income, they could be retired. And I think there's a level of frustration with those folks. And I've had them talk to me, they'll come in, they'll complain about the changes in the industry, the technology requirements, and they're not comfortable with it.
Right.
So I think even though they don't do a lot of business, I think their renewal rates dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
Or I should say increased a little bit.
You and I have had this conversation for a decade.
Yeah.
And I've always got to be careful because I'll say something and sometimes I speak without thinking thoroughly, or maybe I've just misinterpreted. I mean, I have 200 agents in my office, so I'll say this. I'm like, gosh, did I just insult one of the agents in my office? I certainly don't mean to do that. But you have these different levels of agents, and I have a rule in my office. Two rules in my office. You have to conduct yourself professionally and take care of your clients. How hard is that?
Right.
And it's something as simple as pick up your phone and make sure you're educated and all the rest of that. But that really has nothing to do with whether you're a high volume. Hey, I closed 50 transactions last year,
right,
or whether I closed one transaction last year. Because we know agents that are, in theory, killer agents, do high volume, and quite honestly, I would consider them unprofessional, and they would not be allowed to work in my office, even though they've done a huge amount of business. And then the flip side of that is an agent who flies under the radar, maybe sells a house to a friend once a year. But these are solid people, and they're great agents, and they take care of their people. So in my office, and I think in our industry, there's a place for those people. You don't have to be making gobs of money and doing a lot of business as long as you're professional. But again, then there's that area in between where it's just like, okay, I haven't done a lot of business. I'm not really engaged. Maybe I'm part-time. And I wonder if this is a marketplace where those folks say, okay, let me exit my real estate career for a little while.
Yeah.
And then, come back maybe when the grass is a little greener. Because it's been tough.
And that happens.
A couple years.
That happens. Almost, particularly in the last several years, I've noticed a number of agents will come in and they'll join IVAR in March or April or May. And they would have been a long-time member. They could have been a 10-year member prior to that.
Yep.
And we start talking and they say, well, I have been very busy and I wasn't sure if I was going to join again. However, my neighbor's selling their house and I'm going to get the listing. And they join.
Yeah, and it happens. And
Absolutely.
again, if they're pros and they do it right, then, welcome. The water's warm.
Yeah.
In fact, they'll remain nameless, but I just had an agent, wasn't with my office, exited the business for a while, and just rejoined IVAR a month ago. And again, and that's who this person is. She's like, hey, I've gone through a little. That's a nice part about this business, quite honestly. If you're good, you can kind of do that, and you can ebb and flow. Okay, so let's segue into this commission lawsuit stuff. I was interviewing somebody yesterday. This is a true story. I'm in the dentist, at the dentist chair. I've got the whole thing in my mouth, and my dentist is asking me about, hey, what's going on with this lawsuit stuff and these commissions? Yeah. What are you doing? And I've actually been going out and doing consumer-facing business. I haven't done that in a while. I mean, I'm literally, which by the way, that's a whole nother conversation. Why am I going out taking listings? Well, because the market's tough. And hey, when things are tough, sometimes you go out and you go back to your roots.
Right.
So, but I've dealt with the consumers more so face-to-face than I have in a long time. I am not surprised, but surprised how aware the consumers are of what's going on in our industry. Yeah. Enough to the point where they know something's going on.
Right.
And there's a lawsuit and then this and that. So we'll touch base on that a little bit. We both agreed maybe we're not the best folks. By the way, I'm going to bring in Art Carter. Art Carter will be in studio, maybe even live at our event. And between Art Carter and Ed Zorn, I mean, they're our go-to people on this, right? And there's certainly, and we were in a meeting this morning where Ed was bringing down the truth. But let's touch on it a little bit. So first, before we get into the details of the case, do you think that is going to have an impact on our membership as far as numbers are concerned, or do you think once everybody figures it out, we'll just look back and say, no big deal, we had a little panic attack, but we figured it out?
Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say it's not going to have a huge impact on membership.
Okay.
And I say that because early on in my career, when I joined IVAR, the market wasn't that great. There was a lot of REO properties. This was 2010. And people were complaining then, but still joining.
Yeah.
And I would think to myself, why are they coming back? So many of these folks aren't doing enough business, but they would come back. And I think there's a few reasons why. The threshold to get in or get back into the business isn't particularly high.
It's easy.
And if you have relationships, you have neighbors, you have friends, you have business associates, you can get business from it.
Yep.
And they just don't want to walk away completely.
Right.
So they still stay in the game because they've got some skin in the game. They can make money off of it.
Yeah. Well,
So I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on membership, to be honest with you.
I don't either. I totally agree with you. And I think early on there was some discussion, oh my gosh, there's going to be a 20% reduction in membership.
Right.
And I paused for a minute, well, maybe. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, no, I don't think, especially now. I feel that just, and frankly, even as of this morning, I think we as an industry are starting to take a deep breath. I think we're going to be okay.
Right.
I don't know if you and I have had this conversation, but so I have some good friends that are up in the Seattle market. I can't remember the name of the multiple listing server up in Northwest MLS
Yes.
or whatever it happens to be. And I was having this conversation with them at a Coldwell Banker event back in November. And back in November, I was a little, I mean, I knew about it, but I was a little, wow, okay, things are going to change. And it was Dave Danforth, Coldwell Banker Danforth. Thank you, Dave. And Dave was, relax. We've been doing this, I think at that point it was over a year.
Yeah.
They stripped out the compensation out of the MLS. They figured it out. And his response was materially no change.
Yeah.
It feels like today we're going to come up with a best practice that I think it's going to be different. We'll have a change, but
Right.
I guess a year from now, I guess we'll know. So, okay, so this is the industry side of our conversation. So if you're a realtor or do what Mark and I do, this may be interesting to you. I do have a lot of my agents who have paid more attention to this, and I've been talking about it for 2 years.
Yeah.
But they've certainly been paying more attention to it now. So we've got a couple dates coming up. Ed Zorn said Sierra MLS is stripping out the compensation this month, right?
I believe so, yes.
He is.
Yeah.
After our meeting, I talked to him, and he
Okay.
said it's coming out on May 28th, something like that.
Right.
Okay, and then we've got the other change with excuse me, no. See, there we go. See, we just
got it
messed
reversed.
up. I just reversed it.
Right. The concessions is going in.
Adding the concessions
Right.
this month, stripping out the compensation August 13th.
Right.
See, exactly what you said I was going to do. Oh,
The
boy.
details get a little tricky.
It does. Anyway, Adam, leave it in. We just corrected ourselves in real time. So, so this is my thought. This is good. I feel better this morning than I did even yesterday because, okay, now I got some hard dates. Now I can go back to my agents and say, okay, the end of this month, we're going to have a new field, seller concessions to the buyer for whatever. Obviously, we're not calling it anything, concessions. Right. And then we know date certain, August 13th, give or take a day or two or whatever
Right.
it is, the compensation goes out. So I think starting probably end of this month, as soon as that new field goes in, I think the industry will start to adjust. I don't think we're going to wait until August. I think we're going to, as soon as that new, I could just, an example, and I don't know, we don't have a policy in my office yet. We're going to formulate it. Not that I want to wait for somebody else to do something, but I'm thinking, okay, now that we've got this concession filled, I could see many agents, whether they're Coldwell Banker Town and Country agents or not, saying, okay, effective now, I'm going to put zero compensation in the selling office side, and I'm going to move whatever I'm going to do over to the concession side.
Right.
And then I think we adjust. Right?
I think that's the case. I think one of the holdups on that could be the zip forms. The contracts need to have accurate information that reflects that.
Okay.
So, I mean, in a perfect world, everything is in sync and it all hits on a specific date.
Yep.
I don't know that's going to happen. I think there might be, the Sierra MLS may be weeks or a month ahead of the forms or
Right.
vice versa, and that could slow the process down so it's not a seamless transition.
But the forms are coming out in June-ish?
June-ish.
11th, 15th.
Yeah.
There's you and I are thinking about. I'm looking at that.
Yeah, they
little
usually do
infographic.
it year one in June and another
Okay.
one in December. So as long as that works and it happens, I think, yes, it could
Well,
all line up.
I could see that happening very quickly.
Yeah.
I really could. And I think, well, you're 100% correct, though. Without the zip forms, there's almost kind of like a chicken and egg kind of a thing.
Right.
But even prior to this August 13th removal of the actual current commission structure, I think we'll have it sorted out.
Yeah.
I really do. So who wins and who loses with this? Do you have an opinion on that? Consumers, agents, brokerages?
I think who wins are agents that have historically been productive. I think that the system is moving toward agents who are able to demonstrate their value. And if agents solely relied on their ability to submit an offer and collect compensation based on a guarantee through the MLS,
Yep.
and they never proved themselves, never demonstrated their value, and didn't work for it, and we all know that's happened,
Yes.
those agents are going to be at a loss, because
Yep.
I think that the seller and the seller's agent are going to be looking not only at the offer that comes through, but the substance of this agent. Can they deliver on this contract? And I think that sellers are going to be looking more importantly on the whole net sheet, the bottom line. It's not what you sell the house for, it's what you net. Because we're going to be seeing that price built in, and offers are going to be built in with compensation to the buyer's agent.
Yeah. So quality agents who know their value, can articulate their value.
And agents
Winners.
that are more creative and adaptable. I think if agents, and it's very easy, you know this, we can all get complacent.
Yep.
And if we have a certain way in which you do business and we don't want to be flexible, we don't want to be creative or an entrepreneur, you're going to get boxed out. Because I think this is going to force agents to be more creative, more entrepreneurial, and their ability to sell themselves and get offers accepted and how they structure and negotiate contracts.
Yeah. I think we're already seeing it. I mean, I've seen a few things, people attempting to get ahead of this. And it's funny, it was actually the opposite of what I expected. I kind of expected it almost to be a race to the bottom. We don't want to talk about commissions or how those business models work, but almost like a lowering of value. And I think there will be some of that. Hey, I'll sell your house for whatever. But I've actually seen almost the opposite. I've seen listing agents outside the MLS doing things that I haven't seen in a while. That basically says, hey, my listing is offering this dollar amount, and putting it out in like an email blast or putting it out in that particular area, which they certainly could do.
Right.
But it's like, I haven't really seen a lot. And by the way, and this is a number that is maybe a little higher than I would have expected. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's somebody who sees value. They apparently have articulated it to their seller that says, hey, let's attract a consumer based upon compensation, which is kind of funny because isn't that part of what we're trying to avoid?
Right.
You know, we're steering, oh, God forbid we use that word, a consumer based upon compensation. But it seems I could see that happening. I could see agents saying, hey, or sellers saying, hey, look at us, we're willing to pay more.
The other concern I have are first-time home buyers, buyers that are using various grants. I mean, all of a sudden now, that buyer, in particular if they're competing against an investor, that does not want a commission, not asking for it, and they're just going to go direct. It's
correct.
So I think that one of the unintended consequences is going to be first-time home buyers and people, FHA possibly, VA, maybe they're going to be squeezed in this, which is not something I think is a good thing. Well, that's going to be an unintended consequence.
And it would be an unintended consequence.
Yeah.
And I agree, again, I agree with that completely. I think I don't want to say the entry-level buyer, but buyers in general might find themselves squeezed a little bit.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned FHA. FHA's, my goodness gracious, it's like kind of the salt of the Inland Empire, right? You've got these generally first-time buyers or an entry-level buyer or somebody who doesn't have 20% down or more to come in.
Right.
But generally speaking, the FHA loan program's great. You get qualified. I mean, heck, you're helping maybe a young couple or whatever individual move into a house. But how hard has it been to get an FHA offer accepted for the last 10 years?
Right.
You know, and I've probably been guilty of that as a listing agent where you've got 10 offers on the table, and I go to my seller, hey, Mr. Dowling, you know, this is what we got, and you got 3 of them that are cash at or above list price, and you've got this poor little FHA buyer over here, which is a great offer, but mentally a seller or even an agent for that matter says, well, geez, you probably should take the cash, you know, non-contingent, no appraisal, no cash requirements. It's frustrating, but I agree. I think the buyers, I think there's going to be a segment of buyers that are going to turn out to be losers.
It's already been hard enough for them, and this is just one more thing that I think is going to basically dogpile and make them less competitive in the marketplace, and that's unfortunate.
It is. The VA thing's going to get figured out. The VA thing meaning, you know, currently the statute basically says a veteran buyer cannot pay commission, period.
Correct.
So this needs to get figured out. Is that something we need to worry about?
Well, I think one of the misnomers when this lawsuit settlement came out was when it said that the buyer's agent is no longer going to be paid by the seller.
Correct.
And that's not what the settlement says at all.
Correct.
What it says, as you know, and you said earlier, it's just not going to be listed in the MLS as a mandated compensation element. You can still represent a VA buyer, and as part of your offer, still submit that the buyer's agent's brokerage to be paid X percentage.
Which is generally what's going to happen in all these cases from now on, whether
Absolutely.
it's a VA buyer or not.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it is interesting, but it's funny you mentioned the headlines. Boy, man, that first 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, the headlines that came out.
The guaranteed 6% commission is gone.
That one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, and several that were very similar.
But you are aware that that 6% number is not, in California, that's not at all the case. We've never had that here.
Nope.
But that is kind of the case in a lot of other states.
Well, that was the thing.
That's really eye-opening.
Were you aware? I did not know this, and I've been following. I think there's very few people that have followed this as closely as I have for as long as I have. And again, I'll credit you and I'll credit Art Carter. But when we were on that Zoom this morning with Ed Zorn, and he was actually describing the details.
Yeah.
That's the first time I had heard that. And in effect, the details oversimplifying is a seller says, hey, I want to go, Sally comes in as a listing agent, says, this is what I like to do, I'd like to negotiate, and the agent basically said, this is what it is. Well, thank you very much, and another agent comes in and says, no, this is what it is. I'm going to leave the percentages out for my own purposes. And the third agent comes in and says, well, yeah, we'll negotiate it a little bit. Okay, great, do the negotiation. And then they close escrow, and the escrow charged a number which was higher than was agreed to in the contract?
Right. And that 93% of all transactions over a 4-year period were at the same commission rate.
Correct. So that being, now that's not California.
No.
Because that's why I think a lot of us California agents, myself included, have been like, I don't get it. I don't understand this. Our listing agreement is clear as day. I mean, page 1, above the numbers, right below the name and address. Commissions are negotiable.
I heard there's a state that will rename nameless. They literally have on the listing agreement boxes with percentages, fixed percentage on those boxes.
Right.
Is it going to be 6%? Is it going to be 7%?
Right.
And that was the negotiation
that was
took
it.
place.
So again, maybe California, we always tend to be ahead of things when it comes to that. It's certainly consumer protection and agency and disclosure.
Yeah.
So, but it will be fine. And that's fine. And by the way, guys, it's always been negotiable, certainly in our world. Since I've been in the business, I've never known anything other than that. But so we're going to survive. The industry will figure it out. There may be a little bit of collateral damage, I think. Again, I do think, unfortunately, there'll be, my assessment is exactly what you said. I'll just add a little bit. Agents who do not have the ability to articulate their value, and I'm going to, for the moment anyway, I'm going to target more on a buyer's agent side. My just advice to you would be, up the game. Up the game, be able to, because it's not only going to hurt the agent, it's going to hurt their buyer if they're not representing.
Sure, because the buyer-broker agreement is going to be a mandated contract. You have to have that in order to submit an offer, in order to even view a house through the MLS. Well, in order to get that buyer to sign it, you're going to have to demonstrate to them why they should choose you.
That's right.
This is not the days of, hey, just use me, and then if you don't use me, you don't use me.
Right.
You have to literally sell yourself now and get them to sign a contract.
Well, what if the sell myself is, oh, by the way, everybody has to sign this now, so just sign here. That's not going to work.
No.
Okay? But that's been the argument. I've even probably said this. One of the reasons buyers, brokers agreements haven't really caught on in California is because they're not mandatory.
Right.
And it was like, well, geez, if I'm the only one doing it and everybody else isn't doing it, then I got to sell it. I got to sell it.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell it. It's too difficult to sell it. Well, guess what? Now you're going to have to, sell it's not the right word. You're going to have to articulate your value.
Yeah.
I mean, period. Just articulate your value. So, but it's funny though, because we just at CAR, California Association of Realtors, Mark and I attend these meetings multiple times a year. We sponsor legislation to mandate legislatively the buyer-broker agreement.
Yes.
Little, I guess, too late. I mean, I guess, does it even matter now? Because even though I'm assuming that legislation will go through the process and pass, but it sounds like the results of this settlement have basically mandated it before the actual law is mandated.
To some extent, Seattle. You mentioned Seattle earlier and kind of what they did with their MLS. Seattle faced the same situation. They first took it out of the MLS, the compensation aspect.
Okay.
That came out first. And then about 8 to 10 months later, a year later, was when it was legislatively mandated.
Okay.
So that came afterwards.
Right.
And we're going to be following a very similar suit here in California.
But you think that's going to be, what's the process to get that legislated? 2 years?
No, I think it could be done. I mean, it depends on when it gets passed and then when it gets enacted.
Right.
So I think the one in Seattle was passed sometime in June, and then it didn't get enacted until January 1 of the following
But
year.
for our purposes, doesn't that almost become mandatory on August 13th or whatever
Yes,
date that is?
it does for us.
Yeah.
Right.
So that date, and again, it might move a little bit, but when that date comes, August 13th, 15th, 16th, 17th,
Right.
I have policy to set. Broker owner, Coldwell Banker Town and Country. I got to sit back and say, okay, at what point do I sit back and say, okay, everybody else may not be doing it, but we're doing it effective this date and this time.
Right.
So, anyway, I think we successfully somewhat navigated that. My takeaway is it's going to be fine. I think it's going to elevate the level. I hope it's going to elevate the level of professionalism. In
Well,
our
and how many
business.
times have you had agents representing buyers, and the buyer walks on them after that agent has done a tremendous job?
All the time.
I mean, you've got them under contract.
Right.
This is a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. But that's going to be, there you go, though. That'll be interesting. Okay, now I got you under contract and you walk on me.
Right.
Okay, we can have that conversation. Now, what am I going to do? Am I going to chase you down? Am I going to take you to small claims court? Or am I going to take you to superior court, depending on what our agreement was?
Right.
We'll see how that shakes out.
There's probably going to be a lot of, I'm trying to think of the term, not prevailing wage, but
procuring cause?
procuring cause.
Oh
thank
my
you.
God.
There's going to be a lot of procuring cause issues
there's
because
two words I never want to hear ever again in my
if you
life.
accept an offer and that contract and there's no contract, it's going to get a little weird. So people are going to have to really pay attention, and sellers are going to have to ask for that type of representation contract
Yep.
as part of the offer.
But I think these things will sort themselves out fairly
Absolutely.
quick. There'll be a little bit of stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Okay, let's not do that again.
Right.
And then, Frey, this is what I was talking about Ed Zorn earlier. Somebody, a smart broker, smart agent, maybe legal counsel for a big franchise, is going to come up with something that, we haven't thought of yet. And which just seems impossible because a lot of smart people have spent a lot of time
Right.
thinking this over. But they're going to come up with something, and we're all going to say, that looks like best practice.
Right.
This is what we're going to do. Ed was talking about creating new forms, which I thought was a little terrifying. Brokerage. We both agreed that having an individual brokerage with a separate RPA could be a little challenging, if for no other reason. We got coverage issues and insurance and CAR. So, but he had indicated maybe different brokerages with different listing agreements.
He did.
He said that, and I thought, oh no, we don't want that.
Yeah, Ed's a bit of a maverick on that. He's not happy with some of the direction of what he's seeing with the ZIP forms.
In the existing form. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some things he doesn't like. And he has concerns that there might be an opportunity for somebody else to come up with another form, which I don't necessarily share his enthusiasm for that at all.
Right.
I don't.
And I don't either. And we
Yeah.
just had the conversation, and I thought,
Yeah.
really? And he kind of presented it in a way, it wasn't a negative way, but it was like, there may be some offices that see a competitive advantage to sit back and just simplify.
Right.
This is the new option, and are we going to go this direction, or are we going to go that direction? But I don't know. I mean, to the degree that I was worried about it, I seem less worried about it. Having said that, if you're an agent who's not confident
Right.
in your value, and your ability to articulate what we do, then you better get comfortable.
Get your skills up.
You better get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I was working with the seller today, and it was something really silly, to be honest with you. We had two little issues that came up. One of them had to do with prorated property taxes. We're closing escrow tomorrow, and they had paid their taxes, but it hadn't hit the county. You know how that works. It's not instantaneous. And there was another little issue. It's just little bitty things. But my seller was genuinely freaking out, okay? And for me, it was easy because it's like, oh yeah, I've done this for a long time. It was
Right.
a 2-minute phone call, calm down, we got this, we got that. And then I literally kind of went to this conversation. I thought, I wonder how many agents actually could calm that seller down and actually show value in that, been there, done that.
Right.
This is how we're going to handle this. This is how we're going to handle that. And the sad truth is, I think that number is unfortunately small.
I think one of the biggest challenges we have is agents always identify the lack of professionalism within our community of realtors.
Yep.
And I don't think it's because agents are particularly malicious. I don't think that's the issue.
Yeah.
I think we have a large number of agents that don't do a lot of transactions.
Yep.
And when you don't do a lot of transactions, it's hard to be really efficient at your job.
Yeah.
And if you're not efficient, it can be interpreted that you're not professional. So you're right. If an agent is not experienced and they don't know that situation, how to solve that problem, and they don't know how to get an answer to solve that problem, they come across very badly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and in this business, I mean, come on, man. I've been doing this a long time, and
Yeah.
There's a transaction in my not too distant future, whether it's a transaction that I'm personally involved in or one of my agents involved in, something will be presented to me, and I'll be like, huh, haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And the question is, oh, well, how do you handle that? But if you're a new agent, you've closed 4 deals, and now you think you're a pro, and then you get hit over the head with a 1031 or whatever it happens to
Right.
be. But we'll survive. We will survive.
Always.
Okay, so to finish our little interview today, let's go back to the market forecast side. We've done our industry stuff. So listings are up. So what's Mark Dowling, if you want to make a prediction? Where are we going to end this year? Transaction count up a certain percentage. Prices, median price, average price. What do you feel? Are we going to have a crash? Stick your neck out.
Yeah, no crash.
No
I
crash.
think we're going to see listings continue to increase on a monthly basis compared to last year.
Okay.
So I think we'll probably end the year somewhere in the 8 to 14% increase. 15% increase.
And you're specifically talking Inland Empire
Yes,
market. We're not talking
correct.
California or national.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm
this
with
is
you.
just basically the market within,
Okay.
Inland Empire.
So 15 to 18% increase in listings taken.
And listings taking, I think there's going to be a lag, obviously, on the closed escrows, closed sales.
Yep.
Because that's the nature of
way it
the
works.
industry. But I still think that's going to be up over 10%.
Okay.
So I think we're going to be in a better position.
So 10% higher, more
Closed transactions.
closed.
Yes.
Okay, so 15, 17% more listings, 10%, give or take,
and
more closed transactions.
And prices are holding. In fact, they're actually, the last couple of months have gone up more than they have in a year.
Yeah, I won't put you on the spot because we didn't prep this, and whenever someone does this to me, I think I know the answer, but I never want to stick my neck out.
Yeah.
I was running numbers an hour or 2 hours ago. Median price, LA County, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange. And all 3 of the 4 counties, all-time high sales prices.
Yeah.
With the exception, I think LA was just like 0.5% below whatever that peak was, that when we peaked, when interest rates kind of went, and that's in 2022. So yeah, so prices are, but again, but not crazy. We're not seeing this 20% COVID appreciation. So up a little bit.
3 to 5.
5%.
Yep.
Healthy.
That's manageable.
Yeah.
And if rates come down a little bit, that'll help a little bit more.
Yeah, are they? You think you got to?
No, I'm not hearing that.
Yeah. So you think we're going to be in a 7? We're going to end the year around 7-ish?
That's what I'm hearing. I have not seen anything different than that. I'm sure there's people that are way smarter than me that have that opinion.
Yeah, well, I did. I'm not that I'm smarter than you, but I was following people that I thought were smarter than me, and we're not supposed to be at a 7.25%, 7.125% rate today. We're supposed to be in the low 6s or maybe high 5s.
Right.
I mean, what was it, 2 months ago that the Fed and we're going to see 6 cuts in the Fed funds rates.
Yeah.
And now,
Didn't happen.
we've seen none.
Right.
Maybe we'll see 1.
Right.
Maybe we'll see 0. I don't know. Interesting times.
Yep.
So, but we will survive.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Always.
So there you have it. Straight from the CEO of the Inland Valleys Association of Realtors, our industry will survive. We will do this again next year. We'll compare notes. And Mark, as always,
thank you so much.
Thank you for coming
Appreciate
on in.
it.
Alrighty, and we're going to be releasing this video, as you guys will know, because you're going to be watching it, before our May 29th event. So May 29th at California Baptist University. Registrations 8 to 9, our events from 9 to noon. Click the link below. You can get all the data. And again, thank you, Mark.
Great.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you on May 29th.